Hello everybody, here we are kind of looking at the screenshot of the way the table looked in my last video, and here we have it now. A little bit stripped down, totally barren of all moving parts, so to speak. We last week cut out not enough light down here, really is there, but we cut out these big holes all the way down the side of the duct bank, the existing one, and opened up a bigger channel for it to go into that end tube as well. And we bent all of our pieces. We just finished the last one a few minutes ago. We were kind of laid up since Thursday night. We kind of twisted ourselves up a little bit at work and got all kind of sore there. I'm talking about sore. My knee looked like a softball. Anyways, it was a beautiful thing. It's the tide has finally gone out of my knee. It's Sunday. I finally got out here and got where I could do something. So we've fabricated all the pieces of the duct bank. We've got this side all clamped in place. It's two sections. My little brake won't bend but 40 inches at a time, so I got a 40-inch starter section and then a seam here, which came out really well. So we actually managed to duplicate two really nice pieces here. It blended in perfectly together, so we haven't put the second piece up on the other side yet, so cross your fingers for me on that one. We still have to cut out a notch here in the front where it ties into the collector box. We'll cut in here, and I've got a mark up here a little bit higher. This will notch out across here so that this top piece will still open up. This is a hinged opening, and what we did was we cut a hole out in this into this box as well to help the draft, because it was all choked down going into that little 2x4 tube. And so now basically what we've got is a 6x8 inch opening to draft through. And I turned the fan on before I even put the ducts up here. I had these holes cut out, and I was able to run the motor at wide open speed. It wasn't slowing it down. Of course, I didn't have one of these ends capped off at that time, but I was impressed with the flow I was getting. I went to the back of the table and unplugged this little guy here and was just feeling it, because it was just like nothing before, but just feeling the draft here excuse me, was quite about 6 or 7 times what it was before. And I still have the speed controller limited it somewhat to what wide open is for that fan. But I had this one end, I made a cap for this end. And I got the last piece sitting over here still in the brake. I just finished bending it a few minutes ago, and so dadgum, before I cover everything up, I better kind of show everybody a little bit about what I did. I always seem to say after I do it. I don't have any way to set the camera up, but this is my little homemade brake, and we managed to bend a few pieces, and we got holes punched in them. We broke out our little Roper Whitney number 5, I think it is, hand punch, and we were thinking about setting up the other one, and it was a little bit easier for this. This was only 20 gauge metal, so the Roper little number 5 did great. So we've got this process here. We didn't cut them on the plasma cutter. We were all set up to. We had moved everything around. We had moved the table over. Remember I told you I had to move everything over, and I had these old wheels. You can see one of them's down here. I let this end down before I started using the brake, just for a little bit of stability. I didn't need it because it's a heavy table, but these are the legs that were at one time the legs on the plasma table. I cut them off to put those bigger casters on there because I knew if I had to move it with that everything else, it was going to be a little rough on these. So this was just a little quickie thing I made with a fold-up hinge on it, where you could screw a screw down underneath the bottom of it. A bolt that I have, I cap the ends of these and weld a nut over a hole like that there, so you can jack it up, take the wheel, fold it up, and jack it back down to move it where you want, jack it back down and level it back out. But anyway, so I clamped into this. I used a little hydraulic jack sitting over there. Clamped a piece of tubing on the side of it and jacked up underneath that, and set the little wheels, clamp those in place with several clamps and on each leg. And before I set it down, I angled these in the direction I wanted the table to go, so all of them were, fairly close to aiming themselves in the right direction, so that hopefully if I could get the table to start moving, at least it would go where I wanted it to go. So anyways, we made some marks on the floor from where it was, and kind of where we wanted to end up, and it did pretty good. So we moved it over like we said we were going to do, and we cut this overhang off the workbench off all the way down. We zapped that off. We had a small piece of it cut off down there before in front of the grinder, just to make a little cubby holder work out of. And we, I want the router, I wanted the grinder back a little bit more on a solid foundation instead of just on a piece of plywood cantilevering out over the edge of the table, so to speak. So we've got everything all together. The rails are all drilled, counterbored. We found some really neat wire wrap, and it's a little spiral, and it really looks pretty good. It's not hard to put on whatsoever. It's flexible where you can still see into it. I think that looks pretty cool too, seeing all different colored wires popping out as it goes through the little spiral joints. I could have wound it tighter, but it would have made it more rigid. And plus, when I cut the piece, I had added about 2 inches to it. And if I'd wanted it to be where you couldn't see the inner quarter wires at all, it would have had to have been maybe another inch or so longer than that. We got our tubing. They're 1/4 inch thick walled 2x2 tubing. That's some heavy stuff. I'm glad they delivered it. They stuck it right on my saw to cut it and laid it down on the floor for me. You can't get no better service than that anywhere. That's what friends are all about, you know, friends in the business. Well, so we have also, we're repurposing our old rails, which was just 2x2 tubing here. We went ahead and miter cut both ends of both of them. So these will be our starter legs. When we come down here off the existing legs, that 45 will come off of here and come out far enough to come beyond the duct bank. And as we said, we're gonna make sure the duct bank works the way we want it to before we enclose it. There's kind of a fairly decent view inside the duct bank and inside the table. So hopefully it's going to do what we want. If it doesn't, I've got one more thing I could do on the end of the table. I think it'd probably be easier on the other side with the light. If it doesn't draft as well as I want it to, before I make a commitment to attaching everything, I'm going to come back down here on this end of it, and this is where you can see where the initial collector box is, and here's the hinge top that opens up, and I was telling you I got to cut a notch out, you know, up here, so it still works. So I can put my filters in there, but I'm still concerned that I'm only going to have this 5x6 or 5x7 opening here, whatever it is. I haven't measured it, and I feel like that's going to limit me as well already. So maybe before I get any further, I will take and cut this up underneath, cut this down further all the way across. I drew a line down here. I've already thought about it, and basically from the end point view, just like I said, cut this section back here, bend this back down flat, and then bring it back in square over here. That way there's a nice big area, more volume for that to draw itself into. The way I plan to attach this all was just by spot welding it. That's why I punched all the little holes in it all the way down. But that's the plan. I plan to get the other duct on there, get the end cap made for the other end, turn the fan on, throw a piece of cardboard or something up on both these two ends. I'm sure it'll hold itself in place, and fire it up and let it run, and hopefully at that point I'll be able to go in and open up the trim pod on the speed controller for the fan and run it up higher than where I've got it now. I think I limited it to 75%. So we want to probably run the fan at least 80% or 85%, just under its capacity at least. I don't want to have to trim it down like that. It's just not good for the motor. Best thing for the motor is minimal load, max RPM, so we're close to max RPM. So there you have it, guys and gals. That's the setup of the rebuild. I've also, as you can see, I moved this table way over. I jacked it over just as much as I did everything else. So we'll have just as much room before as we had over here, and everything looks like it's just more open. Yeah, motor's still sitting on the table. Haven't put it on the air compressor yet. What can I say? I can't do everything. I only had one day this weekend where I could get up off my butt and move around. And I feel it already swelling back up. So I'm about done. Don't want to make this too long and too boring. If you like CNC, if you like Mach 3, if you want to see how this turns out, stay tuned for the next one. Y'all have a great evening. Hurry back. Like the video. Subscribe to my channel if you want updates. I'll subscribe to yours. If you're into CNC, that's me. I'm new. I'm a newbie. So that's why I'm still rebuilding. Store-bought brings lots of pain and grief. So bottom line, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Might not be as pretty as store-bought, but I guarantee it'll be around long afterwards. You guys have a great one. Have a good one. I've had a super short weekend. Propped up, wrapped up with heat pads, ice pads. So I'm going back to that. See you later.